Nobody in the town remembered when Elias disappeared into the hills. Some said he left after the hurricane. Others said life simply pushed him there little by little until one day he stopped coming back down. Deep in the green mountains of rural Jamaica, beyond the broken roads and rusted zinc fences, Elias lived alone in a tiny shack made from old wood, palm leaves, and pieces of metal stolen from abandoned buildings. When it rained, water poured through the roof directly onto the dirt floor. At night, the jungle screamed around him. Tree frogs, wind through bamboo, dogs barking somewhere far away in the darkness. Elias was 57 years old, but he looked 80. His cheeks were hollow. His ribs showed through his torn shirt. His feet were cracked from walking barefoot through mud and sharp stones for years. One eye was cloudy from an untreated infection. His hands looked like dried tree roots. Every morning before sunrise, he walked into the bush carrying an old machete with a broken handle. Not because he was hard-working, because if he did not find food, he did not eat. Sometimes he cut bananas from wild trees, sometimes breadfruit, sometimes nothing. The nearest shop was miles away downhill, and Elias almost never had money anyway. His shack had no electricity, no running water, no bathroom, no bed. Only a dirty mattress, a bucket for rainwater, a charcoal pot, and an old radio that stopped working years ago. The jungle slowly swallowed everything around him. Vines crawled across the walls. Mold covered the corners of the shack. Termites ate the wood while he slept. Sometimes tourists passed through the mountains in rented jeeps. They took photos of the beautiful countryside. None of them noticed Elias watching silently from the trees. To them, the jungle was peaceful. To Elias, it was a place where people disappeared slowly. One afternoon during the rainy season, Elias walked 3 hours to a nearby village hoping to find work carrying cement for construction workers. The foreman looked at him once and laughed. "You too weak, old man." Elias walked home in silence beneath heavy rain. By the time he reached the hills, the river had flooded. He sat beside the water until dark because he no longer had the strength to cross. That night, he returned to the shack soaked and shivering. The roof leaked harder than usual. Drip, drip, drip. He stared into darkness, listening to the jungle breathing around him. And for the first time in years, Elias realized something terrifying. If he died there, nobody would know. Not for weeks, maybe months. The next morning, smoke no longer rose from his shack. The jungle remained exactly the same. Birds still sang, rain still fell, the wind still moved through the trees, and somewhere beyond the mountains, music played from beach resorts filled with tourists who would never know a man named Elias had existed at all.
Nobody remembered exactly when Yasin stopped receiving letters from home. At first, the silence felt temporary. A missed convoy, a delayed truck, another broken radio somewhere deep in the desert. But weeks turned into months, and slowly the tiny military outpost disappeared from the world. Far beyond the cities of Morocco, deep inside the endless emptiness of the Sahara during the Western Sahara War, Yasin lived with 12 other soldiers inside a dying military post built from sandbags, rusted metal sheets, and cracked concrete left burning beneath the desert sun. During the day, heat swallowed everything. The air itself felt alive. Wind pushed waves of sand against the walls non-stop. Flies gathered around empty food cans. The ground burned through the soles of their boots. At night, the desert became freezing and silent, except for distant gunfire echoing somewhere far across the dunes. Yasin was only 19 years old, but the war had already carved exhaustion into his face. His lips were dry and bleeding. His skin was burned dark by months beneath the sun. Sandstorms had damaged one of his eyes, leaving it red and half-blind. His uniform smelled permanently of sweat, dust, and diesel fuel. Every morning before sunrise, he climbed the old watchtower carrying a rusted rifle and binoculars covered in scratches. Not because he believed an attack was coming, because routine was the only thing keeping the soldiers sane. Sometimes, military trucks arrived with water and supplies. Then, they stopped. At first, the commander told them help was delayed. Then, the radio stopped working properly. Then, fuel began running low. Then, food. Then, hope. The outpost had almost no ammunition, almost no medicine, almost no clean water, no contact with headquarters, no way to leave safely across the desert. Only a dying generator, a small Moroccan flag moving in the hot wind, boxes of old military equipment, and a faded photograph Yassine carried of his mother standing beside their home near Gilmim. The desert slowly buried everything around them. Sand climbed against the walls every night. Metal rusted beneath the heat. Old tire tracks vanished within hours. Sometimes, Yassine looked across the dunes and felt as if the Sahara itself wanted to erase them completely. Occasionally, military helicopters crossed high above the desert. None stopped. Sometimes, distant explosions appeared on the horizon at night, like flashes from another world. Sometimes, silence lasted for days. To politicians and generals far away, the war was strategy, territory, and maps. To Yassine, it was thirst, heat, and the terrifying feeling that nobody remembered they were still alive. One afternoon, during a violent sandstorm, the final water truck failed to arrive. The soldiers waited for hours beneath the burning sky. Nothing came. By evening, even the commander stopped pretending everything was under control. That night, the men drank the last clean water carefully, one small cup each. Nobody spoke much anymore. Some stared into darkness. Some whispered prayers. One soldier quietly cried while writing a final letter he knew nobody might ever receive. Days later, the final generator finally died. The outpost fell silent. No lights, no radio, no sound except wind pushing endlessly against the walls. Yassine sat alone outside beneath the stars, rifle across his knees, watching the black desert stretching forever in every direction. And for the first time since arriving there, he realized something terrifying. If they died in the Sahara, the desert might bury them before anyone ever came back. The next morning, no smoke rose from the outpost kitchen. The wind continued moving across the dunes. Sand erased footprints from the night before. And somewhere far away in Morocco, music still played from cafes filled with ordinary people who would never know how a 19-year-old soldier named Yassine slowly disappeared beneath the endless desert sky.
Nobody in the town of Katowice remembered exactly when Piotr started looking older than his father. Some said it began after his first year in the mines. Others said the coal dust aged every man eventually. Deep beneath the southern Poland, far below the freezing streets and gray apartment blocks of Silesia, Piotr spent his life underground inside one of the old coal mines, still operating despite decades of accidents, collapses, and deaths. Mining accidents and deadly cave-ins continue to affect workers in Polish coal mines, especially in the Silesia region. Piotr was only 22 years old, but he coughed like an old man. His face was permanently covered with black dust that never fully washed away. His hands were rough and cracked from years of gripping rusted machinery and broken metal rails. Dark circles hung beneath his eyes from endless overnight shifts underground. Every morning before sunrise, he walked toward the mine wearing the same damaged helmet his older brother once used before a methane explosion burned half his body years earlier. Not because Piotr loved the work, because there was almost nothing else left in town. The factories had closed, the younger people were leaving Poland for work abroad, and the mines, dangerous, old, and slowly dying, were still paying enough money to keep families alive. His apartment had broken heating, water stains on the ceiling, mold growing behind the kitchen walls, and coal dust covering nearly everything inside. Only a small television, his mother's medicine on the table, and unpaid electricity bills stacked beside the window. Underground, the mine felt alive. Metal groaned constantly inside the darkness. Dust filled the air. The elevator shook violently, descending hundreds of meters below the earth. Sometimes the walls cracked loudly enough to silence everyone instantly. The older miners always listened carefully after those sounds, because sometimes the mountain gave warnings before it killed people. Piotr worked 12-hour shifts, cutting through black rock beside men who no longer believed they would survive long enough to retire. Poland has experienced repeated deadly mining accidents caused by tremors, methane explosions, and collapses in recent years. One night, during winter, Piotr and several workers were sent deeper underground after supervisors detected instability near one of the tunnels. The company wanted production to continue anyway. They always did. Hours later, the tremor came, without warning. The lights exploded into darkness. The ground shook violently. Metal screamed. Then the tunnel collapsed. Dust swallowed everything. For several seconds, nobody could breathe. When the noise finally stopped, Piotr found himself trapped beneath the earth with 4 other miners inside a narrow section of tunnel barely large enough to sit upright. The radio was dead. The emergency lights barely worked. Somewhere beyond the collapsed rock, men screamed for help. Then, even the screaming stopped. For 3 days, the trapped miners waited in darkness. They shared small amounts of dirty water dripping from the ceiling. One man prayed non-stop. Another slowly lost his mind and began speaking to people who were not there. Piotr kept thinking about his mother sitting alone upstairs in their apartment, waiting for him to return home after work. On the 4th day, the knocking sounds from rescue teams finally disappeared. Silence returned underground. Complete silence. And for the first time, Piotr understood something terrifying. The company might stop searching long before they stopped being alive. Far above them, snow continued falling over Silesia. People still walked through the streets. Trains still moved through Katowice. And somewhere inside the dark earth beneath Poland, a 22-year-old miner named Piotr slowly disappeared, where sunlight would never reach him again.
Nobody in the favela remembered exactly when Gabriel stopped going to school. Some said it happened after his father disappeared. Others said boys in the hills of Rio de Janeiro simply grew up too fast. High above the beaches, hotels, and music of the city, beyond the tourist postcards and bright carnival lights, Gabriel lived inside a crowded favela built from stacked concrete rooms, rusted metal roofs, hanging electrical wires, and narrow alleyways climbing endlessly into the hills. During the day, the favela never truly slept. Motorcycles screamed through tight corridors, dogs barked constantly, funk music echoed from distant rooftops, children played football beside open sewage water, and somewhere nearby, gunshots always seemed to exist in the background. Gabriel was only 16 years old, but exhaustion already lived inside his face. His clothes smelled permanently of smoke, rainwater, and rusted metal. Small scars covered his hands from years climbing through abandoned buildings searching for scrap metal to sell. His shoes were falling apart beneath the steep concrete stairways of the favela. Every morning before sunrise, Gabriel carried a broken backpack downhill through the city, searching for abandoned construction sites, empty warehouses, and ruined buildings filled with metal pipes, wires, and anything valuable enough to survive another day. Not because he wanted money for himself, because his mother could no longer pay rent, because his little sister needed food, because electricity inside their home disappeared more often each month. Many residents in Rio's favelas survive through informal recycling, scrap collection, and unstable work while facing poor sanitation and dangerous living conditions. Their home had no reliable electricity, water leaks during heavy rain, broken windows covered with plastic, and exposed wires hanging dangerously across the ceiling. Only 2 thin mattresses, an old fan that barely worked, his sister's school notebooks, and a small television filled with static most nights. The city slowly consumed people like Gabriel. Tourists stood on beaches taking photos beneath beautiful sunsets. Meanwhile, boys his age climbed through collapsing buildings searching for copper wires and broken metal worth a few reais. Illegal scrapyards and metal theft networks remain connected to poverty and survival economies across parts of Rio. One afternoon, during heavy rain, Gabriel entered an abandoned apartment building near the industrial outskirts of the city after hearing other collectors talk about old electrical wiring still hidden inside. The building was unstable. Everyone knew it. Cracks spread across the walls. Water leaked through the ceilings. The elevators no longer existed. But Gabriel climbed upward anyway, carrying a flashlight and rusted cutting tools, because empty hands meant no food that night. Outside, thunder echoed across Rio, while water rushed through favela alleyways, flooding staircases and streets below. Inside the building, Gabriel tore copper wiring from damp concrete walls floor by floor, while rainwater dripped around him. Then the building groaned, loudly. For several seconds, everything became still. Even the rain outside seemed distant. Gabriel froze. Dust slowly fell from the ceiling above him. Then the floor collapsed. Concrete exploded downward. Metal beams twisted violently. Darkness swallowed everything instantly. By evening, nobody knew exactly where Gabriel had gone. His mother waited inside the favela, listening to distant gunfire and heavy rain striking the rooftops. Hours passed. Then morning arrived. Life inside Rio continued normally. Tourists still filled the beaches, music still played across the city, trains still moved beneath glowing lights, and somewhere beneath the broken concrete of an abandoned building, a 16-year-old boy named Gabriel slowly disappeared while the city above him kept dancing.
Deep in the mountains of Japan, inside a hollow tree older than most human cities, a worker bee opened her eyes for the first time. She was born into darkness. No sunlight, no sky, only the sound of thousands of wings vibrating through warm walls of wax and honey. From the moment she emerged, her life already belonged to the colony. She would never become queen, she would never have children, she would never even survive the winter. A worker bee exists for one purpose alone: to protect the hive. At first, her world was small. She cleaned empty honeycomb cells where new larvae would soon grow. She fed newborn bees with food produced from her own body. She repaired broken wax walls beside sisters she would never truly know. Every bee moved with perfect purpose. No leader commanded them. No words were spoken. Yet the colony moved like a single living organism. And at the center of it all was the queen. Hidden deep inside the hive, she laid eggs endlessly, thousands upon thousands, ensuring the future of the colony never stopped. Around her, workers formed a living shield of bodies, feeding and protecting the only mother they would ever know. Outside, summer covered the mountains in flowers. The worker bee eventually became a forager. For the first time in her life, she left the hive. Cold mountain air rushed over her wings. Below her stretched forests painted green beneath endless sunlight. The world was enormous, beautiful, and deadly. Every trip beyond the hive carried danger. Birds hunted from above, spiders waited between flowers. Rain could drown her mid-flight, but still she flew, because hidden back inside the hive were thousands of hungry larvae and stores of honey needed for winter survival. Day after day, she returned carrying nectar and pollen. The colony grew stronger. Honey filled the combs like liquid gold. Young bees hatched every hour. For a while, life felt peaceful, but in nature, peace never lasts. Autumn arrived early in the mountains. The flowers began disappearing. Cold winds swept through the forests, and somewhere beyond the trees, another colony was growing hungry. The giant hornets. Their nest had become enormous by autumn. Thousands lived inside it, and the colony demanded more food every day. Giant hornets are among the deadliest predators honeybees face, capable of destroying entire hives within hours. The worker bee had never seen one before, but she smelled fear spreading through the hive before she heard it. Alarm pheromones flooded the air. Every worker froze. Then came the sound. A deep, violent buzzing unlike anything a honeybee could make. The hornet scout landed near the entrance. It was massive. Its orange head gleamed beneath the fading sunlight. Its jaws were large enough to tear bees apart effortlessly. One scout alone could mark the hive with pheromones, guiding an entire swarm of hornets to the colony. The worker bee watched from inside as guards backed away. European honeybees often panic and attack directly, only to be slaughtered. Giant hornets can decapitate thousands of bees in a single raid, but Japanese honeybees had evolved differently. For millions of years, they had fought this enemy. The hornet crawled deeper into the hive. The worker bee could smell honey on its body as it searched through the darkness. Still, the colony did not attack. Not yet. The hornet moved farther inside, closer to the queen, closer to the larvae, closer to everything the colony had spent the entire year building. Then suddenly, the hornet seized a worker bee in its jaws. The sound echoed through the hive. Crunch. That was the signal. Instantly, hundreds of bees surged forward. The worker bee threw herself into the swarm as bodies piled over the hornet from every direction. Within seconds, the monster vanished beneath a living sphere of vibrating bees, a hot, defensive bee ball. Inside the swarm, the worker bee pressed herself tightly against the armored body. It struggled violently beneath them. Its legs ripped through layers of bees. Some died instantly, but the others held tighter. Then the vibration began. Thousands of bees activated their flight muscles without flying. The temperature inside the ball started rising, 40 degrees Celsius. The air became thick with heat and carbon dioxide. The worker bee could feel her body burning. Still, she vibrated harder. The hornet screamed beneath the mass. Japanese honeybees can survive temperatures slightly higher than giant hornets, allowing them to raise the core temperature to nearly 46 to 47 degrees Celsius, hot enough to kill the predator. The worker bee's wings trembled from exhaustion. Her legs weakened. Every instinct begged her to escape the heat, but she stayed. Because if the scout survived, the hive would die. The queen would die. The larvae would be carried away and fed to hornet young. Everything the colony had spent through spring and summer would vanish before winter arrived. So she endured. The heat climbed higher. The hornet's movement slowed, then weakened, then stopped completely. Silence spread through the center of the bee ball. The invader was dead. The hive had survived. Slowly, the surviving bees pulled away from the pile. Exhausted workers crawled across the combs. Guards returned to the entrance. Nurse bees fed the larvae once again. And deep in the center of the hive, the queen continued laying eggs as if nothing had happened. The colony lived on. But the worker bee could no longer move. The heat had taken too much from her. Around her, life continued without pause, because honeybees do not fight for glory. They do not expect to be remembered. They fight because survival demands sacrifice. Beneath thousands of moving bodies lay one tiny worker bee who would never see the mountains again.
No creature in the hive knew her name, yet because of her and hundreds like her, the colony would survive long enough to see another spring.